Hello and welcome back to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets. I'm your host DJ Mitchell here to go over Friday's four-game NHL slate. We're in the final stretch of the NHL season. It's we're in the Dallas Stars jersey today as they are making their playoff push. I think they probably should get the last spot, but we'll know probably by the time you're listening to this as they play on Thursday night. If they get that win, they might have it pretty much locked up. If not, Vegas could try to squeak their way back in, but we'll keep the Western Conference on our mind as that's all that's left because the Eastern Conference is all done. We know every team in the playoffs in the East, and we've known that for 2 weeks before the season ended, which is pretty crazy. It really is. Like, I know it doesn't sound that crazy because normally you can kind of tell which team are going to make it, but to be statistically out of it 2 weeks before every single team in one conference kind of is absurd, just because of the chance a team could lose every game and win every the amount the NHL allows teams to stay in it with the loser point. It's pretty special to think of how bad every other team was. So with that all being said, we still have 4 games tonight that there's money to be made. Have mainly games that are completely useless as far as the playoffs are concerned in any capacity. Really not even that many playoff teams. I guess there's about half. But the first game has absolutely no playoff implication whatsoever, and it's the Ottawa Senators at the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a game that just on paper I like as an overbet just fine, if not okay, a good bit maybe even. Neither of these teams play very good defensively. It's a little bit piquant on if Werenski's back, and we just don't know at this point. He didn't play the past two. Well, he played in 2 games ago and got hurt in the first or second shift. Did not play in the game against San Jose. They came home. He wasn't at practice. Neither was Line. That did move Kent Johnson up to the first line with Roslovic and Bjorkstrand. He was not on the first power play, but I think we need to keep an eye on all this. The season's almost over. Who knows what we're going to get exactly on our unit. With Werenski out, also Adam Boqvist moved up to that first unit, and he scored and he got called back against San Jose. Tough break there because, it's pretty close, but I believe it was goalie interference. They called it back on, but irregardless, or actually, why do we do that? Regardless, I don't like this Columbus team a lot at -120. I know it's at home, but I do think it was the better team here. Ottawa just played a really impressive shootout win at Vancouver, who was really clinging to life in the playoffs. I know it's very unlikely they make it, but they were kind of right there, like needed this extra point to give them a little bit of edge, and they didn't get it against Ottawa. I kind of been banging the drum of this team. I bet them against Vancouver, as I said I was going to, and they got the win. It's not going to happen all the time, no, but I still like him here at +100 a good bit. They're just a better team. They have a better forward depth in general that I just think they'll find more goals. Both of these teams also do something that's, at least to my liking, Columbus had 3 players that got about 6 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. And Ottawa had 3 players like about 4 and 9 minutes that last line that bottomed them. So when the games were close and they're trying to mount comebacks, either or, they just buried their fourth line and gave the top 6 all of the run they could possibly handle. So I do think that's pretty in for DFS in a game I like the over 6 in. I think I like it maybe for the most goals of the entire slate. It's really a coin flip. Colorado, Edmonton, I think on paper is going to project better, but I think goaltending here is a good bit worse. So I think it's worth the potential of game stacking. I really do, because this is really in DraftKings where you're going to find a ton of savings. Columbus is a literal complete save. Roslovic at 3,300 kind of seems egregious to me. Barring the same guys are out, that's just scoring at a better clip than I expected, and the roles there, just not top power play. But him and Boqvist are really, really cheap. I know Boqvist isn't a good rates guy. I know he was shooting like 25% at one point before he got hurt, and it was obviously a bit of a goal drought sense. So it's tough to stomach. Some people will probably go to Jake Bean, who's just a better rates guy in general, getting more minutes, but not top power play for Columbus. He had 2 goals recently, which might project him better, but I don't know what that's going to look like. They're really, I guess the point I'm more of making here is there really isn't one defenseman on either team that's a smash with these. And that might be able to afford you guys like Cale Makar and John Carlson. You still get exposure to those top teams in just a different capacity. Maybe you can still get another piece with them. We'll get to later. So the Chuck 6,300, Bjorkstrand 42. Batherson is not with Brady and Norris right now, but I think Josh Norris is just kind of an amazing example of a player that could have a peak game at any point. I mentioned this on the Morning Skate podcast, and I have it pulled up right now just to see if anything has changed. But he, as far as the, where is it? Corsi 4 per 60 on just power play. He's number 1 in the league. So I know it's kind of tough because, he's averaging about 3 minutes of power play time per game. But he's shooting more on the power play than anyone else in the entire NHL. like minutes adjusted. So it doesn't matter if you, I did take out one that had less than 20 minutes of power play time to get rid of guys that just don't play it. But, that is including guys Leon Draisaitl, who's third. That guy that we watch shoot time. If you watch Edmonton's power play, it's like, how do we get Leon a shot? Norris shooting more than him. So it really is a guy that if you're stacking Ottawa, I think makes a ton of sense. I think, for the same reason, if you're a power play point person, it's probably Josh Norris. I don't know if you got power play goals, but again, probably Josh Norris. So I really like him a lot in any capacity. His shot numbers in general are, he's been hitting a ton. But over the last 5, I don't think he really excels above the rest. Let's just look. Last 5, because he's kind of cooled off a little bit. Yeah, I think he's below. Oh man, shot attempts per game. Why can't he's got to be higher than I don't know. There's a lot of guys here. I have the whole entire slate up. Yeah, he's just not really popped over the last 5, over the last 10, a lot higher. So his shot prop's fine. It's fine. I'd rather just take him and Brady for a point though, as far as props are concerned. And on the Columbus side, I think it's probably Roslovic, but so many good. If Laine plays, if Werenski plays, we got to keep that in mind. And before we block in any props for them, because those are absolute monstrous changes to their lineups. Moving on to the next game, Seattle is huge road underdogs at Minnesota. Not surprising. Minnesota does have a little bit to play for if you're a narrative person, like getting second in the Central and being home for one extra game and starting the playoffs at home versus St. Louis, a team they've struggled, frankly, on the year. Probably something they want to do, I would assume. So, yeah, I think it's worth noting at least. This game's going to project really well for the under. Minnesota outscores their projection quite a bit. Seattle also does, but that's because they just aren't projected to score very much. I'm going to go with the under here, though, because Minnesota on a back-to-back. Seattle just really playing better defensively. I mean, they held Colorado to 2 goals. I think they can keep Minnesota to the same. I think this game really projects to be a nice 3-1 spot. There really is a lot of rhyme or reason to it other than the math likes it. I know you can talk yourself into goaltending, but I've kind of just been this goaltending and the Seattle defense is going to start to get a little bit better, and it just has. So I'm okay with the under here as one of my favorite bets of the night at minus 110 under 6. You'd be able to wait it out and get better because once we get Minnesota's goaltending kind of locked in for Thursday, I don't think it's going to move in the right or wrong direction. So if you want to wait on this one, it might just stay right there. It might get better for you. I think it's worth the wait. Personally, especially because we might just get Driedger in that. I kind of think we will, and that should move it as you might end up seeing it at 6.5 by the time you're listening to this, and I like it even more under 6.5. And I just am not that. It takes a lot of goalie variance or like a big change in the actual value of the goalie for me to think like that adjusts my line a lot. I'm just not as, I guess, sensitive to it. Like Shesterkin and Georgiev at one time, that was a massive change that really did shape how you were betting. But Driedger and Grubauer just doesn't really move it much for me. It moves it a little, but it doesn't move it as much as Vegas is going to move it. And my model just isn't going to change much. So I still like this game under. Prop wise, I don't think there's anything I'm going to be crazy on here. I'll probably double check, give it a good look over, but it's hard to feel really good about Minnesota. Let me pull that up really quickly. Corsi 4 per 60. You got to scroll down a pretty over the last 10. So this is just shot attempts. They're 19th as far as Corsi 4 per 60. And Seattle just frankly is good defensively. They're 10th as far as suppressing shots over the last 10. Yeah, Minnesota's 15th. And what team, whereas Seattle's 9th worst in Corsi 4. So these two teams kind of like I'm saying that, towards the bottom echelon in, shots taken and towards the top echelon in shots suppressed. So there shouldn't be a ton of shots here in general. You never know though. I mean, games go to overtime and things change so quickly. The one player that's shooting the most in this entire game over the last 5 I have pulled up is Dylan Sprong. The minutes are tough, but in those minutes, he's being really, really productive. Kevin Fiala probably be piled on. That's probably where I'd go here. He's just red hot. I think that's totally justifiable, but you are kind of, getting a worse price than you were getting a couple weeks ago for the same play. It's not like he's all of a sudden getting this insane role. Like normally the only thing we look for in Fiala is he on the first power play? And he is, and he's been there and he's been scoring there. Hartman's actually shooting more with a little bit less run because he moved to the other unit than him on the power play in general. So do with all that information what you wish. I don't think I'm going to be over bullish on props here. Just might take a look at it tomorrow and maybe give you something that I like, but there's nothing that's crazy jumping off the page. So next we get to Colorado and Edmonton. Obviously, this is the focal point of the night for most people. Colorado minus 120, Edmonton, plus 100, double your money if you want to bet on them. I mean, it's one of those things where as a rule, I don't know if I bet against Colorado other than like a $1 bet all year because it's tough to bet against them. They win most of their games, and I don't do it for that reason. It's plus money at home, Edmonton. Colorado, we don't Rantanen yet, still nothing. He missed on Wednesday with a sickness, I believe was the case. We got Kadri back. They moved Lehkonen up to the top line. I hammered his goal prop, top line with McKinnon and Yertushkin, and top power play with McKinnon and Yertushkin. Oh, pretty good. So I hammered that. I still like Lehkonen if you can find him for shot on goal. He just rates out really well. He was a shot guy in Montreal. He didn't have players around him to get him the puck. Now he does. I also love Kadri. With Comfer and Burakovsky, it's even better. I mean, Kadri is a guy that the moment he got hurt was the moment I was really ready to just go all in on this guy as like a top DFS asset. Obviously, he can still fit in on that top power play. I mean, all of this from last game was without Rantanen. If Rantanen comes back in, I assume we might lose Lehkonen, but we'll see. Anyways, though, Kadri should be there no matter what. With Burakovsky and Comfort, guys that I kind of profile as pass first, but Burakovsky can shoot. I think Kadri really is an easy over 2.5 bet on this game. And on the other side, I definitely like Leon Draisaitl again over 2.5. I mean, I should have bet higher bankroll on it. I felt really good on it. He had 0 after the first, and I think he had 3 or 4 after the second total. So he can do it real quickly. He does it in bunches, and you get a couple power plays, and there he is. So I'm really high on Draisaitl's over again. McDavid smashing over 3.5, but just less volume. So it's fine. But Makar, although I think if we get it around even 2.5, I might end up taking a flyer on it for his shot prop. But what I'm getting at here is I think there's a lot of shots to go around in this game. Neither team suppresses shots super well, and both do a ton. So that makes me feel good about these props. And that's how I do it. I kind of look over the last 10. It's more of a heuristic for me to go on natural stat trick and just check over the last 10 on the rates. It's not something you have to do because your model might be good enough to understand it, but it's more of a heuristic for to see exactly what it looks like just on paper. Oilers 5th, Colorado 6th, and Corsi 4 per 60 over the last 10. And again, this is at all situations, all strengths. So it's not going to miss anything. And, Corsi against, I mentioned this before, Colorado's not been very good. They're 9th worst in the NHL, so they're allowing quite a few more shots than maybe you'd think. And the Oilers are 12th. So both of these teams are on the opposite end of the spectrum than what I just talked about with Seattle and Minnesota. They're allowing more shots and they're, taking more shots. The issue is Edmonton's goaltending has been really good. So this is a game I'm way more interested in looking at shot props for those reasons. I don't think point props are out of the question, and I'm going to have to see the pricing on them, but that's how my mind normally attacks different games. And I look at each game more of in a silo than because they are in a silo. Like each game exists on its own in a vacuum. It's really like maybe you could argue that a playoff team might notice another playoff team losing, but I don't know if that actually factors into the gameplay. So what I'm saying is this game has a lot more shots, maybe not quite the expected goals because of the goaltending being a little bit better here, but yeah, so point props more in the Seattle, Minnesota game. I'm way too far on this, but hey, you know what? You've gone all season with me. I might as well give you a little bit more knowledge before we get to the playoffs. So this game, shot prop central. DFS wise, you're going to spend all the money, but I already told you exactly how you could do it. If we don't have Rantanen, Lehkonen with McKinnon is a stone cold must, I would say. And Yertushkin, and you could pair that with like some Columbus, some Ottawa, and feel really good about it. Same with Edmonton. So it's going to be impossible to game this whole thing together, and it's going to be really enticing. I don't know how you get it done. Maybe with Seattle as a piece, but they've actually priced Berniers up to almost 5K on DraftKings. That's really tough to stomach. Eberle and Donato make it worth doing, but nah. Dunn also 4,500. So we've lost a lot of the value in Seattle here. So I don't know how you get that stacked on. But we'll move over to the last game, probably the most boring game in general. I mean, Arizona is absolutely terrible. They almost pulled off the win against Chicago. That was really their last chance to probably get a win on the year. I don't expect them to get it done against a very, very good Washington team. Minus 390 is a tough line to take. I'd probably grab the puck line at minus 1.5 for Washington, but it's not something that I think you have to do. Like a long Western road trip, Arizona's bad, but they just kind of come back in games because teams just give up. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, Chicago on one hand is just terrible, so probably a bad example, but teams just don't seem to try as hard in the third once they're up by, a bunch of goals already. So I don't think I'm going to be overly bullish on Washington in general, other than OV shot prop, maybe Carlson shot prop, OV over 1.5, because I think they'll get it done early. And then I'm probably fading the rest. I don't have a lot of in Washington. Kind of a lot of their like random pieces around. Like it's all about Ovi. This is a chance for Ovi to get a couple goals and get closer to Gretzky's record. I think that they're going to kind of take this opportunity to do that more than anything else. And John Carlson's the only other guy here that I'm interested in. I mean, Detroit. I get Detroit and Arizona confused sometimes because they're both terrible. But Arizona does get shots still early in games. So I still like John Carlson, and Ovi does fine for their shots. We look at the last game and they expected about two goals for Arizona last game. That's not good. They're not good. No one jumped off the page. They did start with Ladd with Hayton and Schmaltz, and they changed that pretty quick. It was Ladd's like 1000th game or something. Good for him, but yeah, he's about done. They took a ton of penalties too. Ovi gets a ton of run on power plays. He doesn't come off the ice. Maybe if they got by enough, that'll change. But I think this team is going to take penalties. They're going to be terrible at hockey, and that's the way it goes. A guy like McBain for Arizona is a guy that I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye on at least. We'll see where he slots in. If he's with Roussel and Boyd, I mean, Boyd's not the worst player in the league, but man, Roussel is not good at hockey anymore. So that's a guy that I'm at least intrigued about a little bit. Like if you pull up Arizona and you go to utility, it's Gosper and Schmaltz above 5. And then, I mean, it is just a wasteland. At minimum salary, Jack McBain is probably just like not good, but you could maybe do worse. He's on the top power play with Kessel, Schmaltz, Gosper, and Boyd, which is like enough for me to at least give it a thought. Other than that, nothing on Arizona. But if you want a crazy plus 500 goal prop, Jack McBain's probably the guy here. And that's the most I can talk about Arizona without vomiting. So with all of that being said, favorite bets of the night, the under in the Minnesota-Seattle game, probably the over in the Colorado game. I'm not sure if I want to say favorite bet on that because I don't know if they're quite going to get there. It's going to be right on the edge. I mean, it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be like 2-2 going into the third, and you're going to be like, it's going to get there. We're going to get that 3-3 tie. Is it, are we going to get that, is one team going to get that third, and then it's just going to shut it down, and we're going to end up 6, and we're going to be, I think it's right there on the edge. So I like it. I think it should get there, but I do want to say it's only 4 games. That favorite bets are kind of tough. I mean, if there was 12 games, this game probably wouldn't make the mix. Best way to put it. And then I do like Ottawa. Right now I think it's the time to probably bet it because I really Werenski and Line didn't practice on Thursday. I doubt they play. So I think I'm going to grab Ottawa right now. Is the only one I'm betting right this second because I do think that line could move. The rest I think I waited out. Maybe Colorado Edmonton also moves a little bit, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, so that's pretty much it in DFS because I'm not doing a DFS podcast. Yeah, I mean, I do think I'll get some Ottawa. I probably will full stack Ottawa and Columbus and get like really upper tier defensemen to go with it, like maybe Carlson, Makar, and a piece with them, maybe even Ovi, and just game stack Ottawa, Columbus. That might be intriguing and for me as like a really unique way of attacking this slate. That mentality might only if you're running like 5 to 10, 50 lineups to get some of that mix in. But if you're running one lineup, one lineup in the 15, I do think you want to get that kind of crazy as well. Like, don't just kind of put together a lineup that feels the best because lineup often doesn't win. And it's going to, you could be duped and you're kind of playing like a one-off, for all the money. I don't love that as much, but it's up to you. Obviously, it's your money at the end of the day. I do think in DFS on a 4-game slate, you should overstacking. So I think my favorite overstack is that Ottawa. Just going like Stutzel, Batherson, Norris, and Brady, all 4 of them. I think that's probably the best starting block for that, just for like an overstack in general. It's also not too hard to get Colorado. As an overstack piece, I already mentioned the hotline. If Rantanen comes back in, you'll have to adjust. Make sure you save the cap. Like, make sure Makar fits into that 4-man because then you could move off him to get Rantanen in and then, adjust from there. And the last that I try to give as much as possible, if you're playing DFS, the slate starts even at 7, right? Hold on, let me pull it up. The slate starts at 7:00 and the last game is at 10:30. If you're playing Ovechkin, he must be in your utility, unless if you're playing 3 centers. Okay, if you're playing 3 centers, it is what it is. Always put in your utility your highest player that starts the latest, and later being more important. So if it's Ovechkin, and you also like the reason why is because if for some reason one of these players misses, and right now players are getting sick with COVID and not COVID. So if Ovechkin ends up missing the game, and you have him in your wing spot, you can only put a wing. You couldn't move in Kuznetsov. You couldn't move in John Carlson. If he's in your utility spot, you can. See what I mean? So just keep that in mind anytime you're building lineups. And I'll get you out of here. Way too long for a Friday slate, but hey, I was having fun. Rate, review, all that good stuff. I'm going to be doing a live show with the Ice Guys, I believe, on Friday as well. So I'll give you more coverage on this slate. And I should be back on their show on Sunday, and I'll be back here Monday, Tuesday. So talk to you a whole bunch coming up. Take care and good luck on Friday.